The topics for week number 4 are character input and operators. But as far as code writing exercises, I think that we should focus on asking our colleague ChatGPT for those character input exercises. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're creative enough, you can always think of clever excuses to use operators in amusing ways. So let's see. This week in my C programming course, I learned about character input using getchar. Can you generate 3 exercises involving character input? Now, I'm fully expecting I'm going to need to argue with it a little bit here. Because we've seen in the past that it doesn't quite understand what we already know. And in particular with input problems, it's very easy for it to generate things that might be a little bit more complicated than we want, things that require features that we haven't seen yet. Okay, so here's what's suggested first off. Exercise 1, counting characters. Write a program that reads characters from the user and counts the number of alphabetic characters entered. Okay, so I sort of like this one. I was afraid at first it was just going to be counting the number of characters entered overall, which is not really something we're willing to do because we've already seen that over and over again in this course. So it should stop reading when the user enters a new line and then display the total count of alphabetic characters. Now, I would say alphabetical, but I think I know what it means. So that is to say uppercase A, uppercase B, lowercase b, whatever. It should count things that are letters, uppercase or lowercase, but it shouldn't count anything else that I enter. Okay, exercise number 2, password validation. Create a program that simulates a simple password validation process. This is actually a pretty neat sounding exercise. I would never have thought of this one. The program should prompt the user to enter a password character by using getchar. The password is considered valid if it contains at least 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, 1 digit, and 1 special character. After the user finishes entering the password, the program should output whether the password is valid or not. Wow, this is actually really interesting. So we're going to have to interpret this a certain way. So one thing we do not know how to do yet is if the user enters a bunch of characters, we don't know how to store all of them together. So I have no way, if the user enters like a 10-character password, I have no way of knowing all of the characters together. But I can check the characters one by one and just verify that the password contains at least 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, 1 digit, and 1 special character. And this is great because all of us ought to have strong passwords like this. And I'm currently racking my brains to make sure that my passwords actually are like this. I think they are. Okay, exercise number 3, character frequency counter. Develop a program that reads a series of characters and then displays the frequency of each character entered. The program should stop when the user enters a period character. What an odd choice. Display the frequency of each character along with the character itself. Okay, it's not immediately obvious, I think, if you're reading this, but it turns out that the only way I can think of doing this would require features that we haven't yet covered. It's not explicit that you need to use advanced features, but I feel like that is sort of implicit. So to compute the frequency of each character, I need some way of storing, I guess you could think of it as a table of the frequency of how many A's I've seen or how many B's I've seen. And we don't yet know about how to do that. There is a sort of brute force way of doing this, which would require making, I don't know, like 50 or 60 or 70 variables, but I don't think that would serve anybody's purposes. So I'm going to ask it for a replacement on exercise 3. Can you generate an alternative exercise 3? I don't want to use, I'm going to use this piece of terminology we don't know yet. I don't want to use arrays. That's the thing I would normally use if I wanted to complete exercise number 3. We'll wait for it to think. Certainly. Okay, here's an alternative exercise 3 that doesn't involve using array. Okay, and it's going to try and explain how to do everything because it doesn't think I know what I'm doing. And maybe it's right. Write a program that reads characters from the user using getchar and keeps track of the occurrence of each character entered. Okay, this sounds like pretty much the same exercise. Let's see what it suggests doing. So I initialize a variable for each character. Okay, so count A for the number of A's I've seen. Count B for the number of B's I've seen. Okay, that's what I was afraid of. I could make one variable for the count of every possible thing. So what? That would be 26 lowercase letters, 26 uppercase letters, 10 digit characters, a bunch of special characters. That's going to be, what, 70 or 80 variables? I am not going to do that. And you can quote me on this, but I'm not going to give that to you as a midterm exercise either. There are a lot of more efficient ways of doing that, but making 70 variables is not one of them. So I'm going to have to, okay, and it just gives me the solution here. So yeah, here's how I'd count A's, B's, and C's. If I have a variable to count the number of A's, a variable to count the number of B's, and a variable to count the number of C's. But I do not want to, well, it's suggesting I add more character checks and counters as needed. Sorry, no, I'm not going to do that. That's going to be way too tedious. That's way too tedious. Can I have an alternative? I don't want the alternative to be similar to the one you just provided in any way, just in case it's going to try and do that. Okay, can I have an alternative? Let's see what it thinks. Of course! It's so enthusiastic. Here's an alternative exercise 3 that doesn't involve arrays. Okay, it's going to try and give me the full solution because it's worried that I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, write a program that reads characters from the user using getchar and counts the number of vowels and consonants entered. The program should stop when the user enters a new line character, so \n. Afterward, display the counts of how many vowels and consonants there were. Okay, that's a little bit of a boring exercise, and okay, it's tried to give me the solution down there, so I won't take a look at that. It's a bit of a boring exercise. We've actually done a lot of exercises like that, but I don't know. I'm being a bit of a tough customer, so I guess I will do this as our exercise 3. Okay, so we'll scroll back up and then prepare to start with a video on exercise 1.